Since I had the breakdown video of the steering box, we're going to go ahead and put it back together. I'm going to start off with a few words of acknowledgement. There's plenty of videos out there on step-by-step how to rebuild these, how to tear them apart, how to rebuild them on YouTube. I'll link a couple of them that I used to kind of educate myself on this build. Additionally, make sure you go out and clean the inside of this thoroughly. I made the mistake of taking it apart and then blasting it in a media cabinet. A lot of that abrasive got inside, so I spent hours cleaning this thing out. So it's good to go now. Another mistake that I made, I probably shouldn't have painted before I went ahead and reassembled it, just because when I was cleaning it I was using brake clean, and that stuff is very harsh, so it was taking some of the exterior paint off. I got the rebuild kit ready to go. There's instructions that come with it. There's also some bearings that I purchased as well. The only bearings that weren't in the kit though, on the worm gear, there's this thrust washer, so that wasn't included. And then also on inside this plunger, there's a bearing in there that I'm going to have to reuse. That's okay. I'm just going to have to drive that out. I did get the seals though do come in the kit, so we're going to go ahead and get this all ready to go. Anyways, where to start? Okay, the first thing that I'm going to work towards is driving these bearings in. I have some of the old components here that I had to drive out. A little bit of the pain in the ass, but I did fortunately have the slide hammer. That worked on getting one of those out, and then the other one I just drove out with a regular socket. So let me get those bearings, and then we're going to drive those in. Before I continue with these bearings, I'd like to point out the directions that came with it aren't the most thorough. I mean, the reassembly is three points and roughly 15 lines. They do give you the exploded view, which is nice, but it's looks like circa 1977, just like the box itself, so they're not really the best quality. Fortunately, YouTubers out there are very good at this stuff, and I mean, I watched, like I said, 4 or 5 different videos of different guys putting these together, and really gave me the confidence to do it. One last point, they give you a set of directions that comes in English and Spanish, but then for our French friends, they get one as well. So I'd like to find a Frenchman who's actually rebuild one of these in a Bronco. Or, okay, maybe it's Canada. Okay, I love the Canadians, you know. Alright, I'll accept it. Okay. 2 sector shaft bearings. Let's go ahead and get started with those. You take your first sector bearing and put it in the housing down this way, and then drive it in because it tapers down here. So I'm going to put this down through the housing and drive it in first. First bearing's in there. Hopefully that focuses.
Okay.
Now that that one is in, we want to go ahead and do the reverse side. So put it up here as such. Now the way that this works, this gets put down this bore as well, but then it has seal, washer go on top of it, and then a snap ring goes on top of that. Bearing driver, ooh, for the time being will fit. Woo. Then I'm going to have to switch to a socket. This should get started. Actually, so if I come over top here, it's seated down in there. There is a little edge on the side here, and that's where the bearing has to go to. And then, like I said, those seals are going to ride up in here. So, as they call it, rotary valve. So I need to take this bearing out, and then there's a snap ring that was in there that I already had taken apart. That's what I wanted. Okay. This is going to have to be retained, that little seal there. Not so much. Okay. Gently put this on over top. Beautiful. Get a little bit walk around here. Pop that in. Go for a drive. Okay, the bearings back in. Now, show my instructions here. So,
Not even every part
This
has
guy.
an arrow.
the dust seal.
Oops.
Okay, here goes my seal. Looks good. Now let's take our snap rings here. Alright, watch your eyeballs. Watch your eyeballs. There it went. See how it...
What's going on with your glove here?
Well, the Michael Jackson, like, because I got this cut from the wire wheel.
Yeah, so it should be over it.
No. No. It's sweating in there and keeping that moist. I don't want that.
You look ridiculous.
I don't care. Okay, this is together. Oh, sweetheart, you see these white ones?
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 of them, and then there's a purple one on the table. Can you go put a pot of water, shallow water, in a pot and boil it?
Mm-hmm.
And let me know when it's boiling.
Yes.
Thank you.
Without those rings in it.
Well, we're going to put them in once the water's boiling. There's a thin O-ring in there. You can replace it. And then there's 1, 2, 3 Teflon O-rings, and then 3 O-rings underneath of those. Additionally, there's a little key on here, this piece here, so it has to go back together with this on top of it like that, but there's an O-ring on top of this piece, so let's keep that sort of oriented. Wipe this off. Match this little guy up. Yep, that's our smallest one. So the smallest O-ring goes inside here. He's going to go back on that little eyelet. Or I'm sorry, I had it upside down. There we go. Now, additionally, there's a little recess here. It's going to line up, but there's a little recess here, or I'm sorry, little key right there at the bottom. So it's going to go together. Fluid right in here around this opening. More on this O-ring. Now I'm pressing down right here where it stays together so that I can keep pressure on that so this doesn't come apart, because it has to stay on top of here. But additionally, I got to make sure that that little recess goes to that keyway. So once I get it started in there, I'm looking to see how that O-ring looks and making sure not to pinch anything. There we go. It went down on its own. But that's back together now, so I need to work on these O-rings. I got water boiling. I'm going to put the Teflons in there for about 10 minutes in the hot water, and then I'm going to dry them off, put these normal O-rings on, and then wrap this up so that those Teflon O-rings can compress.
Lock these on while we're waiting on the Teflon ones to heat. There's one. Start. Can we still get lucky?
It just takes patience. I mean, I believe anybody can really do this. I'm not doing anything here that's completely difficult. Is it an important component? Absolutely. I mean, steering's necessary. Most people are afraid they don't want to mess that up, but it seems like Legos to me. You just got to be patient, be careful. So I used my pick there and just had to make sure that I wasn't going to get in there and cut it. It was very gentle. That worked. Now I have one last one to put on here before those Teflons go on. While I'm waiting for these Teflon rings to be done, I'm going to go ahead and take them off of this main piston. Sizing up my piston, or my O-rings here too, and it looks like I have one or two extra. So, according to these directions, I'm not sure what's going on with that. I might have to go and take a look. They're two small ones. This one goes on this rack piston, and the Teflon goes over it. Alright, I'm going to go check on these Teflons. We'll be back. Okay, Teflons are heated. I don't really feel heated, but let's try and get those on there.
You want me to-
What I'm going to do to shrink them is going to take duct tape, sticky side up. You like to hold that?
Of course.
Both end. Hold here. There you go. We're going to hold off on assembling all of those. I got to go back and check on, so remember I had these seals. We're going to drive those into place now. And with these, first one's going to go in and you can just drive it right down. Second one though, sort of like what we did here, we got that snap ring, so we want to drive it down just enough so that snap ring catches. So that the thin one goes first with the washer on top of it. Let's get a little bit of lubrication here. Oh boy, I think that would about do her. My trusty made in China snap ring pliers. This is to try out my brand new assembly goo. What am I gonna do? Fingernails maybe?
Do you want me to open it? Do you? That's hard.
Got it.
Oh.
One-handed even.
Two-handed. I'm holding it.
Well,
Oh God.
yeah. Look at that.
Solid.
So let's
We're gonna put it. Oh, okay, with your finger.
Those look good. They're still packed in there with that assembly goo. And so, what I was finding last night, it didn't necessarily break the project, but as this goo heats up, it melts and turns into a liquid. And that's really its essential purpose, so that whenever this heats up inside the vehicle, it melts out and then this stuff moves freely. But even the garage was getting hot last night from the lights and the ambient air, and also my hand just holding it. So we took it inside, and I sat at the kitchen table, did a little bit of that. So there's already a good amount of grease on this. I'm going to put some fluid around this O-ring, or Teflon seal. Let's try and get this slid in here. If at first If you don't succeed, then quit. No, I'm not doing that. I did hear that in a video of a guy rebuilding one of these power steering kits. The workbench, oh, it's a complete mess. I got so much stuff going on right now with this rebuild. I was getting impatient, actually, to where I ended up, this is the old, well, new kit O-ring. I ended up nicking it, as you can see, kinda right there. Impatience got the best of me. I got a hammer out. You don't want to do that. So I had to go out and I had to get another kit. It's just part of the process. So you gotta love the process. You gotta really enjoy this stuff, and I do. So it's okay. Regrouped. We're at it again today with a little more knowledge under our belts. So I already have the new Teflon ring on there, but it's already fit so much better because what I did is I took my piston ring compressor and I had it on there for a couple hours while I was at the gym. So it's fit a lot more tightly to this. We're gonna try and get this in, but first gotta mess with these ball bearings again. I had them in and I took the worm gear and I'm screwing it in. I thought I had all this stuff good, and then I'm like, wait, why is this moving freely? It just pushed them all out of the way. So we're gonna try and take this, approach it a different way, see how this is gonna work. We could hopefully get this back together today. You know, put this behind us. Now, I watched a video where a guy was listening to some metal in the background as he was rebuilding one of these boxes, and I thought it was funny that somebody complained, "Dude, great video, but couldn't stand the music you had playing in the background." Like, next time, don't do that. You freaking kidding me? If you want that, then go and rebuild one yourself and go sit in a library and do it. For Christ's sake, I mean, nobody's ever happy. And I'm acting like, you know, everybody that I know and YouTube's going to watch this video. Maybe years later it'll become popular and it'll help somebody else out. That's really what I'm in it for. You don't have to, it's studio quality. You know, I like to add some stuff to kind of make it fun and interesting, but if you don't like my music selection, I'm sorry, but a little Rammstein, ooh, sets the mood. So, well, she's living in a barn again. Door's open. Alright, that was 4 minutes of me going on a rant. I'm going to get back to rebuilding this now. So let's go ahead and figure out where we're at. Interesting fact, Tool cannot be found on Spotify, or you can't buy their albums from online media sources because the band does not believe in media sharing. There's probably some whole story on it on the internet, but if you want to listen to Tool, you gotta go to SiriusXM, which loves Tool, or YouTube. Alright, we're starting with black. So I'm going to put a black inside this. Black. Silver. Black. Oh, well, already one fell out, but nothing you can't fix. Finally, I got that piston in there. I used the ring compressor. I tried to use picks. boiled the seal, tried to use screwdrivers so that I wouldn't damage it. Ultimately, this has a point, this pick has a point on it, so I tried to make sure that that point was not directly in that seal, but 180 degrees so that it was going inside along that metal so that this would guide that seal in there. So I looked for the high spots, tried to push those in. I used a bearing driver and a dead blow hammer. So it's in there. Hopefully it didn't pinch, but at this point, I mean, I had that thing compressed for quite some time with this, and it still was giving me problems. So moving on, I gotta look in there in this housing and make sure that all those ball bearings are still good. Fortunately, I have that end plug off, and all of those, they look good. So looking down on the top here, I want to make sure that this is square for these teeth to come through with that sector shaft. Alright, I have that thing maxed back this way. Actually, I think that movement I just had brought that up to where it needs to be, so that those teeth are showing and they're square because that sector shaft will come in there. But now I'm going to rotate this around. Now I got to get that wonderful worm gear in place. So my first ball bearing is in the 7 o'clock position, so I'm going to come in and take that open end. Seems to be going through like threaded. Oh yeah, it's eating. Oh yeah, that's awesome. Look at that, it spins right in. So I'm gonna just keep spinning here. You can see that's what I'm working with, and then that's the return hole here. I can see the whole thing, so if I hold this, you look down there, you can see my finger. So, okay, that's where that needs to be. Now I need to take this end cap here, says the total bearing preload and valve drag should not exceed 11 inch-pounds. So I'm going to install this. It's pretty tight. It's probably definitely more than 11 inch-pounds. So
now we're getting somewhere. Let's go even tighter, man.
keep going.
Well, let's try a different part of the stroke. Now we're consistently showing about 8, which is what your rig showed.
Alright, we got this set to a good torque. Now we gotta take our sector shaft and send it home. Lube up the old shaft here. Okay, wow.
Show some decorum, Kevin.
I should be saying it to her for what she just said.
Oh! Did it, man.
Almost. Gotta get down a little more. Yeah. Sector shaft's in. I'm gonna go ahead and button up this backside before we put this top cap on, because we're gonna have to set another preload with this. So this goes. The last part to this power steering that I needed to get to, that I didn't show in the video the day of, was this top cap. I take the tape off. You put the seal that comes with it up under this cap, and then the sector shaft gets tightened down with this locking nut on top. So the thing that I noticed with this sector shaft was there was rust around where the previous nut had been. So where it was clean metal, that's where I tightened this nut down to. And then the last portion would be take your bolts and then just bolt this cap down. So this is pretty much the finished product. I was rushed and I didn't tape the rest of this because I had to get this to the paint booth to touch it up. So I taped everything up, and then as you can see, power steering box is complete.